For the last several years, we've had to listen to left-wing hypocrisy, which at this point is becoming an oxymoron, about how evil cultural appropriation is, and that if you're white, you can't dress up like this on Halloween, or this, because the overused phrase, "my culture is not a costume," can be used exclusively against and applies only to white people, because didn't you know, white people, they don't have any culture. They're the only people on the planet that don't have a culture. The biggest no-no of all the racist costumes is, of course, the evil white sin of blackface. And even though things like this,
white chicks,
are totally fine, this is the most offensive costume of all, and white Americans and Europeans should feel bad because it's a reminder of their history of racism. Except it's not. What you probably don't know is that blackface was popularized by Al Jolson and was not at all part of white culture, which, by the way, you're allowed to have a white culture when there's something bad, but was actually a part of Jewish culture. And that's not just because Al Jolson was Jewish, which he was, or that the makers of this film were Jewish, and they were, but because this film, The Jazz Singer, the movie that popularized blackface, is literally a film about Jewish culture and identity. Now, I know that might sound crazy to people who have never seen this film, but as you're about to see, I'm not exaggerating even a tiny bit. The Jazz Singer was released in 1927. The film is so old that more than half of the movie is in the style of a silent film, and only a few portions of it actually have audio, other than music. Audio was brand new technology in 1927. In fact, it would be the popularity of this film, with its new addition of the spoken words from the actors, that would usher in the new wave of talking pictures, or talkies, a style of movie that resembles the movies that we have today. The film was based on a play written by Jewish playwright Samson Raphaelson, and it was produced by Warner Brothers, which was owned and operated by, the Warner Brothers, who were Jewish immigrants from Poland that changed their name from Wansel before the founding of the studio just a few years prior in 1923. The Jazz Singer was also directed by Alan Crosland, who, like many directors, even those directing films today, came from a wealthy Jewish family in New York. But it's not just that nearly everyone involved in the production of The Jazz Singer was Jewish. After all, you could say that about, most movies produced in Hollywood. The reason I bring up its connection with Jewish culture is The Jazz Singer is literally a movie about Al Jolson growing up in a Jewish family and how he breaks from the Orthodox tradition to do, this. Mommy. The film even opens up with this, which right off the bat defines Al Jolson's father as a chanter of hymns in a synagogue and holding on to the traditions of the Jewish race. Like I said, I wasn't exaggerating or trying to read into something that isn't a core part of the film. Al Jolson's Jewish identity and ethnicity is the core of this film, and a theme that never recedes from the spotlight. That it's now taught today that this is something that's a product of American Anglo-Saxons and the other white Europeans that are blamed today for all things racist, when the origin exists right here in black and white, is nothing short of infuriating, and it's just going to get worse. So the whole first part of the film deals with Jolson's rabbi father working at a synagogue and chanting Jewish hymns. There's no way to miss this. When he finds out his son doesn't want to follow in his footsteps, he beats him severely with his belt as his mother's crying in the room next door, and Jolson runs away and grows up to be a singer in the theater. It's not long after that we see him watching a man singing Jewish songs at a Jewish theater, and he's reminded again of his rabbi father. After working the theater for a while, he gets a gig on Broadway. And after getting back into New York, he goes and sees his family. He gives his father a prayer shawl, but his father is still mad and sends him away. So Jolson's depressed, but he gets ready for the big Broadway play. It's dress rehearsal, but he's haunted by thoughts of his father, especially because he's sick, because he feels guilty for what he did to his son, and because it's Yom Kippur. Now, after putting on the blackface makeup, he tells his girlfriend, "There's something after all, in my heart. Maybe it's the call of the ages, the cry of my race." And by that, I don't think he means the black race that he's impersonating with the blackface. But just in case you were confused, we see that clearly as he has this vision of his father in the synagogue in the mirror. Now, his mother and a family friend come to see him and beg him to go see his father and also make a racist joke about his blackface. But Al Jolson won't be swayed. He's very focused on his career, and he goes out and sings the song that would make blackface mainstream in the most famous and possibly legitimate act of real cultural appropriation ever. After the dress rehearsal, he goes home and finds his father sick in bed. His mother begs for him to go sing in the synagogue for his father's sake, and he's forced to choose between this and his big opening night on Broadway. After agonizing whether it's more important to follow his career or break his mother's heart, he decides to miss the performance and go sing the Jewish hymns at the synagogue for his father. They're forced to cancel the show, but thankfully, the show's producer hears his hymns and doesn't fire him, and the show goes on. He is free to wear his blackface and pretend to be a black man on Broadway. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story you were never told about blackface.
Mammy, Mammy, my heartstrings.
For BlackPilled, I'm Devin Stack. If you like my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you share. If you'd like to support my work, you can pick up a copy of my book, Day of the Rope. Link is in the description. Or you can go to patreon.com/BlackPilled or donate to the crypto addresses below.